Oh, this is the podcast studios brought to you by Machine Inc. Welcome, everybody.
I feel like I got to call you Robert.
Robert, you can't call me that. Call me Uncle Bobby.
I can't call you Robert, right?
Everybody calls me Uncle Bobby.
I bet. It's like my dad too.
Yeah, Uncle Benny.
Yeah. Everyone calls him Uncle Benny. Yeah. So yeah, we'll just keep talking.
I'm good with that. I'm good at talking. Anybody that knows me knows that.
So you were saying it's just a dart throw of this. And I was
Yeah. It's like this is interesting stuff to me. I mean, like I told you, I know what podcasts are. We've all listened to them. I had no idea behind the scenes how they do a podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here looking at this stuff and realize this is technical. Right? I mean, there's not just like a guy with an iPhone or a microphone. This is technical stuff. This is pretty cool.
It is. There's a little bit of a learning curve. I don't really know how it works either before. And then as I set it up, I kind of went through like what didn't work. There was a lot of trial and error. But like the fact that I didn't know what I was doing like from the beginning meant like I couldn't explain it to my wife. So she couldn't say no because I had nothing. I had nothing to say. I don't know. What do I?
Oh, that's funny. So the moral of that story is do stuff that you don't know about so your wife can't say no.
Exactly.
Oh, I like that.
It worked out.
I like that. I got to try that at home, see how that flies.
Yeah. I had her on already. We did a show with her.
Oh, so Maria was on, really?
Yeah. She didn't want to be, so she came and then we did it again. She came, she didn't know she was going to be on, and then we did another one where she got ready.
Where she was more prepared.
Yes.
But how do you prepare? You can't prepare for this. This is 100% improv at its best.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. The only thing better than right now is live, because then it's a little more risky. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I could understand that.
I mean, it shouldn't be edited. None of this will be, but yeah, it's going to be what it is.
Yeah. Oh, this is really cool stuff. So tell me, what did you think? We took a little trip recently, you and I.
Yeah.
How did that go for you, like off the record? Is that place everything, like from all the years you've been listening to me talk about it, is it everything you thought it was?
It's way better.
Really?
I didn't know what to expect, like, at all. Because you're out in the wilderness.
Yeah, there's nothing there. If you don't like trees, there's no reason to go.
No.
I mean, there's probably we were in the Shawnee National Forest, right?
Yeah.
It is I think it covers 7 counties in southern Illinois, and it goes from Missouri through the southern tip of Illinois into Kentucky.
Okay.
So it's big, right?
Yeah.
And as I explained when we were together, it's a national forest. It's not a national park, and a lot of people don't understand the distinction.
Yeah.
Right? So it's nice because it's national forest. The federal government owns it for our enjoyment and our benefit. So we get to go do things. You could hunt, fish, camp, hike, horseback ride. That's what it's there for. And so it's cool.
How is that different than a park? I know you mentioned it to me, but what's like the main distinctions between the two?
A national park designation is a park. It's more like a Yellowstone, right? It's more like a preserve. Like,
Okay.
hey, we want to keep this in its condition. We want people to look at it and enjoy it, but don't touch.
Yeah.
Right? And you can do things in Yellowstone, in parks too, with certain limits. You can camp there and you can fish there. But the biggest distinction, I think, is the intended use.
Okay.
Like they own the government owns national forests, as best I understand it, for us, just like open land for the American people to enjoy and use. So it's not as restrictive as a park.
You can hunt. You can't hunt in parks.
No, it's more like a park is more like a forest preserve.
Yeah.
You can use it. You can go look at it, enjoy it, but you don't hunt in forest preserves. It's a preserve,
Yeah.
right? You're supposed to preserve it. Parks are there just like, there's still rules, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't cut down trees. There's certain things you can't do, but it's there for you to enjoy. So people blow right through it.
Yeah.
And there's many other national forests all over the United States.
When you would talk about it before and you were like, oh, it's like the way we own this area, then it like blocks in this part, like abstractly, I'm like, cool, cool. But then like when I'm there and you get to see it, it's
Right.
like,
It's cool.
it's cool because right nearby you have friends that farm. So there's all these like rolling plains, which you don't really expect to see in farming at all.
Right.
And it's like the land before time. It's like very
It is
beautiful.
as it was. So a good friend of mine's father is in his 80s, right? Danny Joe. So he'd been down there a long time. It's a generational thing. And so he can attest to this. It hasn't changed much, right? Since he was a little kid. There are some changes, but it's not like here in metropolitan Chicago where I mean, it's like a decade changes everything. It's pretty much the way it was forever. And that's what the appeal is. I think the Trail of Tears, a lot of people know what the Trail of Tears is with the Indians and how they march the Indians. It goes right through that part of the country.
Yeah.
So, and it's still there. They have it marked.
Yeah, I saw the signs.
Yeah, it's a great place. I mean, something about it just always really appealed to me.
Well, you said you were going there a long time before you finally got like a little piece close by, right?
Well, yeah, because it's public ground. So one of the challenges, if you enjoy the outdoors, one of the challenges is getting permission, right? Like up here in the northern part of the state and in many parts of the country, it's privately owned.
Right.
So you have to ask permission. Well, you don't have to ask permission to go in a national forest. We own it.
Anyone can go.
Anyone can go. It's open to the public. So that's why the attraction, because it's so big and you don't have to worry about getting landowner permission. You can just go. But you have to know where you are. You have to know if you're in the Shawnee or if you stepped onto private property. And down there, as I explained when we were together, it's all checkerboarded.
Yeah.
Over the years, when the government split up, 40 acres in a mule, and they split everything up into 40-acre squares, it got pieced up. It got chunked up. So it's a little...
What was that app that you were using that really... Because like topographically, it's so much easier to understand because it's huge.
Yeah. There's a lot of them. But the one that I use is Onyx Hunt. On X. Like on the X marks the spot, Onyx Hunt. And what it does is it shows you topo of all the lot boundaries and who owns it. So and it's, of course, like everything else on your phone, it's GPS enabled. So it knows where you are, and it's got the map overlay. So it's very easy. Back in the day, when we used to go down there 25 years ago, you had to go to the ranger station to buy a map.
Hope you don't travel onto someone's land and they don't shoot at you.
Right, exactly. And it does get a little sketchy down there. People do tend to stretch the boundaries a little bit. But the modern technology has helped. If you enjoy the outdoors, and this is not just Illinois, this is across the whole country. Yeah. So if you went to Colorado and didn't know where you were going, that app would help guide you. Or if you wanted to contact the landowner but didn't know who he was or where he lived, well, it's just a great tool.
Have you ever gone other places outside of like Illinois that you said, hey, let's try this spot? Or
I did, but it was always private, and I had permission before I went. I went to South Texas. I went up to Upper Peninsula, Michigan, Florida. So, but I always knew before I went. I never had to just go figure it out, right? But I did in Southern Illinois. That's how it all started. And had they had 25 years ago the technology they have today, it would have been a lot easier.
It seems like it, yeah. It seems very,
a lot easier.
Very brazen to just go into the deep forest. I'm going to travel 6 hours south and just with my gun see what I could kill.
That's what it is. Well, the ranger station back in the day, when they would give you a map, it would have the boundaries, but the map you got didn't tell you who owned anything. It just showed a boundary, and it said, this is private, this is Shawnee, et cetera, et cetera. So now you have to try to figure it out. The good news is it's a very small rural community down there, so everybody knows everybody. So it was very easy to find some guy at the campground and point at something on the map and say, hey, who owns this? Yeah. Well, they're friends. I mean, they went to high school together. Everybody knows everybody. News beats you home, as they say in places like that. It's everybody knows everything that happens. So finding the owners back then to ask permission, it wasn't hard.
Do people ask you permission ever? Did
Oh,
people
all the time. All the time. And the answer is a flat out no. Well, I mean, we bought it for our own use.
Yeah.
Right. So that's not true. I'm exaggerating. That's not true. There's other people who have asked to use it, but they're friends of our friends. So they're welcome to use it. Right. So that's not necessarily true. But like if a stranger just knocks on the door and it's some guy I don't know, the answer is usually no.
Is there any animals that you got to be aware of, like that are a threat out there?
No, not here in Southern Illinois. No, those animals are long gone. I mean, there's coyotes, but coyotes really aren't a threat. Not to humans, not really. And that's really the largest apex predator there is down there. There's coyotes. There's bobcats. I wouldn't really consider them an apex predator. They're not going to hurt a human. So there's coyotes, there's bobcats, deer, turkeys. Illinois is pretty tame that way. It's not like the mountain states where you've got mountain lions and you've got timber wolves and it's not like that.
You got a hunting gun and then a shotgun. What do you do up there? Do you know?
Where?
Have you been out in the Rockies or anything like that?
I haven't. But it's in my bucket list. It is. And the older I get, it's floating to the top.
Well, if we go down again and we actually hunt, which I would like to do if we could.
Oh yeah.
Then maybe we could go to Colorado because Colorado's amazing.
I love Colorado. I mean, I've been there. I've been to Colorado, Wyoming, Yellowstone, Utah. I've been there with the family, but I never got to hunt it.
Yeah, I feel very domesticated and like vulnerable in the case of an apocalypse. So I want to make sure
I want to
learn. I want to know that if shit goes down, I can
remember
get
what we talked
food.
about, right? When we were driving?
The
three.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
3 minutes without air, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. You cover those bases, you'll live a long time.
Yeah. That's a good way when you like are getting ready for, what do they call, like bunkering down, or like you have like your apocalypse reserve, or like, some
Just make sure you have those bases covered.
Yeah. Cause like when COVID happened, like I didn't know what to do. I was like, I guess let's get some like canned foods. And then it's like, like I'm trying to like stock up on things. But if you have that amount of ration, you're probably okay, right? Like you don't really want more than that because you'll probably just go to waste.
I don't know. I mean, these preppers, right? Preppers have become a big thing.
Yeah,
and for years I thought they were crazy. But then COVID happened.
Yeah.
And then all the George Floyd stuff happened and the riots and people, rioting in suburbs that we live in.
Right.
And I thought maybe it's not so crazy. Maybe, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, so I'm not a prepper, but I'm prepared. Like,
I know what you mean.
I have a plan. If things got really bad, I know exactly what I would do and where I would go. And me and my family would be fine for a while.
Yeah.
Depending on what we're talking about. Think about 9/11. Right? I mean, nobody could have ever envisioned that.
Didn't they say one of the planes was supposed to come to Chicago, or was that?
Oh, I think there were many. Only 4 got off the ground because they did such a good job at shutting down air traffic, right? So the 2 that hit the towers, there was the one that crashed in Pennsylvania and the one that hit the Pentagon. But I think there were 16. Wow. I think they had every major city on the target. It's just that they shut down air traffic because of flight scheduling and whatnot. They shut down air traffic so quickly that the other planes I don't think ever made it off the ground. I think that's what happened.
I mean, I was like so little. I think I was 15. I remember the day because for whatever reason, I was going into class and I was right by home ec, and someone like burned the shit out of a cake, and I just remember like the hallway being all foggy, like going in, and this being on the TV.
This is when 9/11 happened.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it like stuck with me because there was like this other sensory.
Yeah, I used to do a lot of business in New York back in the 80s, in the late 80s, and I did a lot of business in that part of Manhattan, and so it was really weird to go back and my daughter Jessie lived there,
yeah.
So we visited quite a bit, and so we decided one day we were going to go visit the Twin Towers.
Yeah,
John, it was weird. I thought I could handle this, right? We all know what happened. It was 20-something years ago. It'll be fine. It's not fine. If
Really?
when you go and visit the site, it's now a museum. So where the two towers were standing are reflection ponds, right?
Oh, okay.
And the actual museum is what I think was the underground parking of the
Okay.
towers.
Okay.
It was I can't even put to words exactly what it was like. But here we are at the time, 22 or 23 years later, there were people bawling their eyes out.
Yeah.
People who totally didn't expect to be affected that way, that thought they would just walk through. And when you actually realize the gravity of it and you look around and you look at the photos and then you look down the street and some of those same buildings are still there, it's just it affected me in a very unexpected way. That's the best way to describe it.
Was it kind of like when we went to Southern Illinois and that barn was missing?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, imagine, we're familiar with Chicago, right? We're born and raised.
Yeah.
Imagine going down Michigan Avenue and the Willis Tower, Sears Tower, whatever they're calling it these days.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Oh, yeah.
Not to mention that, but then it's a museum. So they've got a section, and I'm talking about the World Trade Center, all about the New York Fire Department and what they went through. And then they've got a room where all the people that we lost in 9/11, they're on like a computer screen. So if you knew somebody that died on 9/11 at the towers, you could go and look them up. Well, there were a lot of people in there looking up loved ones, and that's where a lot of the tears were flowing. Was in that room. So the way that they structured the museum, it's not just a museum. It really hits you where it counts when you go there and check it out. I would recommend it to anybody traveling in Manhattan. If you've got a day to carve or a few hours to carve out, it's worth seeing. And we went to Ellis Island. So
I don't even know what's Ellis Island.
Ellis Island is where when people would immigrate here, that's the first stop.
Right. That's right. Yes.
But all of my grandparents came in through Ellis Island. So you're actually able to go there and look them up.
Oh, that's cool.
It was way cool. I mean, it was really cool.
Is there photographs or how do you?
No, not so much photograph, but they have their name, the date they arrived, who they were with. You know, sometimes it was whole families, sometimes individual people came over. But I was able to look up my grandparents and see the day they arrived, where they arrived. It wasn't easy.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be easy, right? I mean, nothing worth having in this world comes easy, but it really wasn't. They came, a lot of them, Grandpa Tony, right? No money, no job.
Oh, right.
I mean, some people came with means. If they had money and if they knew people here, it was a little bit easier. But a lot of people just picked up and came over.
Yeah.
It was amazing to think about.
Well, I feel like growing up, especially in like a suburb of Chicago, I mean, it's utopia, right? There's not, especially because you're so kept away from anything that's actually affects you. I remember when the Twin Towers happened, I was like, didn't really affect me because my personal world didn't change at all. It was just like any other history or anything I was exposed to. It just seemed so separate. It didn't seem like a part of life for me at all because it didn't change my life at all. I mean, you know, you see the news and things like that, but then when you do see like the riots and you do become a little more ingrained in society in different subcultures or different things, it does start to seem like the fact that there's like anything at all with substantial structure and like systems, it just seems like nothing short of a miracle.
No, it's true. It's true.
I think like, I like the way you put it, like I'm prepared, but I'm not a prepper. Like I think
there's a difference. I mean, I think that here's what it seems like to me. If you look at a prepper, I feel like they're betting against themselves. Do you know what I mean? I mean, it's one thing to be prepared and know what your plan is and have some reserves and whatever it is that you feel comfortable with. But there's a point at which it has a negative impact because it becomes your whole existence. It's all you can think about, talk about. At some point, you get your plan in place, you set your stuff aside, then you forget about it.
Right.
That's like wearing a seatbelt. You don't think every minute of every day that you're driving in a car and any second you're going to go in a head-on collision.
Right.
You put your seatbelt on and you forget about it.
And you move on with life.
Right. And that's what I mean. That's what I see. Some of these people, and I'm not offending them in any way. I understand why they do what they do. And I'm not too far behind them in my way of thinking. But there's a point at which the benefit in preparing is so that you can let it go and not worry about it.
Right. That's a great point.
Right?
For sure. Yeah. That's the point of preparing.
Right.
So you could
put your mind
at ease.
You put it out of your mind and forget about it, and know that if something does happen that's unusual, like, you're okay.
Yeah.
It's not so that you can dwell on it and think about it every minute, every day, and make it the bane of your existence. That's not the point.
No. Right.
So when I said I'm prepared, but I'm not a prepper, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
That's what I meant. I have a plan. I bought one of these food kits. So you've heard of them, right? These meal kits you could buy that's 30 days of food for one person or two people, and they're in these sealed packages, and they last for 25 years.
Okay.
So
it's like a military rations?
Yeah, it's like an MRE,
okay,
but it's for civilian use. So I got one. I just was curious, like, what's this going to taste like, right? I'm a food guy. I love food. It was actually really, like, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like grandma's cooking, no, but it was okay. And then I had actual military grade MREs that were given to me from a friend of mine.
Yeah.
And I ate one of those. Those were not the best. They were not the best. But one of those MREs, was like 2,100 calories. So that stuff is designed for guys that have 70-pound packs on their back and are humping through the desert all day, right? They're not designed to taste good. And they didn't. They hit their goal. But a lot of calories.
Which was better?
Taste-wise?
Yeah.
The civilian stuff for sure, because it's got to be marketable. The first thing someone's going to do before they buy a civilian MRE, they're going to try it like I did. If it doesn't taste good, they're not going to buy it. That doesn't happen in the military, right?
Right.
I mean, I've never been in the military, but I know a lot of people, and that's not the purpose. The purpose is, hey, I need calories. I'm burning 3,000 or 4,000 calories a day. I need to keep going.
Right.
So the goal isn't to taste good, and like I said, they hit the goal. But it was interesting. So I did it. I bought the stuff. I tried it, and they even have them gluten-free. Like, and they try to hit all the marks. Auntie Wendy's got to be gluten-free, as you know.
Yeah.
So I tried the gluten-free ones. And if I had to go for 30 days, if I had to go for 6 months on that stuff, I could.
How long does a pack come in for? What's the normal ration? Like you said, 30 days, 2 people?
Well, you could buy whatever. So you could buy, it depends on the company, but you could buy a week's worth for one person. You could buy a month's worth for a family of 4. You buy what you want to buy. It's just a matter of money. And the stuff lasts for, they say, like 25 years.
Wow. Now I like shitty food. Like I don't eat it as much. Like, but like people are like, oh, they got to get the airplane food. Like that's the best. Or like cafeteria food.
It's like that.
I don't know why. I'm a big fan. Like it turns some people off, but like a Lunchable, like a pizza Lunchable to me sounds amazing.
I remember the name of it, John. I remember the name of it. It's called, don't quote me, the company that I got a sample from. It was My Patriot Supply.
My Patriot Supply?
My Patriot Supply, yeah. I think I probably heard it on Hannity or something. But that's what I got. So, yeah, they make this stuff. It's got to be marketable, right? Because their job's to make money. So it's going to taste okay. And it did. It was very edible. Salisbury steak, macaroni and cheese.
The staples.
Exactly. But the military stuff, whole different animal. Just a whole different animal. But for a whole different purpose. Right.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I'm prepared, but I'm not a prepper. But I have a plan. We've talked about it at home. We know if things, and I thought it was honestly until recent times, COVID, George Floyd, 9/11. Not that was recent anymore. It changed your perspective.
Yeah.
Because you grew up your whole life insulated, thinking, well, this ain't gonna happen to me.
Right.
This can't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can.
It seems impossible, or it did.
Yeah, it did, but it doesn't anymore.
No, not at all. I mean, especially as
No,
you get older and you have kids, you
right.
kind of realize even though there's governments and there's society, it feels like it's always still like the animal kingdom. It feels like it's still just it just feels like it's always anarchy. Like it doesn't matter.
True.
It doesn't matter like the systems are there and that's real, but like when it really comes down to it, like anything can happen at the drop of a hat. And obviously you want to have like a good moral compass and things like that.
Sure.
Because like you had those riots and then I don't know the kid's name, but like he was in like that weapon altercation and had to kill somebody because they had
Up in Kenosha. And I forget his name at the moment, but I know exactly who you're talking about.
And then I heard like people were like, yeah, he was justified. And like, look at the videos. And like, yeah, he was justified. I'm sure he was justified. Yeah, he didn't go to jail. But do you want to have to like do you want to have to shoot people? Do you want to have to kill somebody because you want to preserve your right? It's like unnecessary, you know?
Yeah.
There's a difference. And like, if you go out there, you know, like
that's a good example. If you think about that, and I don't know why, but his name is just not. And I know I could see his face. Kyle, was it Kyle? Kyle Rittinger, maybe. But at any rate,
yeah,
it's an interesting thing because when something like that happens, it shows you how polarized we are in this country. Because there's people that 100% stood behind him and said he was 100% within his right.
Yep.
He was in danger. He protected himself.
Yeah.
And the courts agreed. But
Yeah.
there was a whole other school of thought that said, why was he even there in the first place? And why was he walking with an AR over his shoulder out in open public and open carry? And it just shows you in this country how polarized we are. And that you could have two viewpoints and they're both right.
Right.
They both make their point and they're both right in what they're saying.
Right. They are both right.
But it starts to peel the onion skin back in terms of when something like that happens, how polarized we really are in this country. And we are.
Right. Well, they say it's the home of the brave and the land of the free.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, well, you should stand up for your rights and we should have guns, like, you know, because of obvious situations that could put you, your family at threat, or, you know, government overtaking a coup or whatever they call it, a coup d'etat. I don't know.
There's a lot of reasons.
But like thinking about it from just like a purely like emotional perspective and like after the dust settles, like that's got to be terrible to live with for the rest of your life. You got to live with it. I'm sure every day the kids
if you ever actually had to use lethal force.
Yeah. Because
it's the worst thing ever.
And it's not like that justifiable where he's like, well, yeah, they broke into my house. They were trying to do this or that. I had no choice. Well, I was outside with a gun because I'm like a young kid.
And he was trying to help.
Yeah.
Right.
It just sucks. It's just a shitty situation.
Well, it's bad. This country's gotten into a weird place on the whole Second Amendment thing. I mean, I'm a big Second Amendment guy, right? You know me. You know that.
Yeah.
But I'm not stupid. I'm observant.
Yeah.
And I do understand that there are people out there who, although they meet all the criteria and have every right based on our Constitution to carry, they shouldn't. Just because of their personality traits. But you can't govern that.
Right.
Unfortunately. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think we all probably know that. But to me, it's like, I use a seatbelt analogy like all the time, but that's what it is. It's a seatbelt.
Yeah.
You don't think about it. You can't predict when you're going to need it. You don't wait till you're going to get into an accident before you put your seatbelt on. You just get in your car, you put it on, and you hope for the best.
Right.
That's where I place my position in terms of firearms and Second Amendment rights. You hope to never need it. You'll probably never need it.
Yeah.
But if you ever did, thank God you were wearing your seatbelt.
Right.
That's how I place it. Think about Christmas Eve, 17 years ago. I don't know how well you remember this, but again, this whole concept of that can't happen to me. 9/11, COVID, George Floyd. That can't happen. Can't happen to me. Think about Christmas Eve, whatever it was, 17 or 18 years ago. We're at your house Christmas Eve.
Yep.
Remember that?
I do know.
So we got grinched. You heard the story, I'm sure. We got robbed on Christmas Eve. They were watching our house. They saw me and the kids leave to go to your house. Auntie Wendy was still home. They broke in the basement, went straight up to the master bedroom, and she was in the shower.
Yeah.
And they heard the shower running and realized somebody was still home. So they hid. She came out of the shower, saw the bedroom door open, and got a little wigged out, but she didn't hear anything. So she just assumed I forgot a present or something and came home and left.
Yeah.
And she talked herself out of being scared, but she was spooked enough to where when she left quick. Just dried her hair, walked down the stairs, out the front door, and left. Forgot about it. We get home at midnight, enter the home, and we'd been robbed. Flat screen TV was gone. All the presents, everything was gone. The master bedroom was ransacked. And of course, Auntie Wendy went sideways.
I bet.
Because then she realized somebody was actually in the house. So when you sit there and go, this stuff can't happen, it can happen.
And it does.
It does. It does happen. I mean, as much as we'd like to think we live in a world where it won't, shouldn't, it does.
Yeah.
It does. And it's very creepy. And that chain of events, they caught the guys, believe it or not, a couple months later. And they were bad people. They weren't just young punk kids doing something stupid. They had long criminal histories. They'd hit many, many homes. It could have ended a lot worse than what it did.
Right.
They left crowbars on the bed. They left their hoodie on the bed. So they obviously left in a big hurry. So they potentially could have still been there when we got home. So luckily, the police did their job.
Yeah.
And they caught the guys a couple months later. But it changes your worldview.
I bet.
It
yeah.
does. When something like that happens, it changes your worldview.
You're extremely violated. I mean, and then you have to feel vulnerable. And then you're with your wife, being your wife alone. That's like, does she have a gun now too?
She does.
I bet.
She absolutely does. In fact, I travel.
Yeah.
And she doesn't like it. Don't get me wrong. She does not like the idea, but she sees the necessity, right? So, yeah, when I'm out of town, her bases are covered.
Yeah.
Her bases are covered when I'm out of town. And it's the seatbelt concept. Again, I mean, it's like you don't think anything's going to happen. It probably won't, but she's got options.
Right.
And she sees the necessity. Prior to that happening, she's not comfortable with firearms.
Yeah.
She's trained, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
She's competent, but she is not comfortable with the idea of living in a society where you have to be trained. But she now realizes all the crazy road rage stuff that goes on. We got robbed. Your perspective, it changes.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It doesn't take much for all of a sudden, all this lucid acceptance, everything flows freely to just congeal in very specific locations and just make that place like a total hell or a total war zone for a short period of time. Like when it snowed in Texas and like people are dying.
Armageddon.
It's Armageddon out of nowhere. And I was telling you about that guy I like to listen to, Terrence McKenna, a lot. And he talks about things basically having like, he calls it like novelty, which is like another word for like nuance or like subtlety. And I kind of like adhere to this a lot for some reason. It resonated with me. Like as we move forward into time, the patterns, they become more and more frequent. So like say before like an apocalypse would wipe everything out, everyone would die, everything would change, like this huge world event, and then it would regenerate. And then it would come again, but then maybe not everyone would die. There would be some people that lived and worked their way through it. Well, it's like, the way I look at it is like the way things fractal, right? Like you have the big shape and it's here, and it's prominent and large. And then at one degree of separation, there's an extrapolation. So it's like 1 to whatever that number might be.
Right.
And then as you get onto the fringe, one extrapolation is like the numbers become astronomical at which it can grow. So as you move further away from like the starting point or like the present into the future, like there should always be a situation where an apocalypse is taking place on a small scale, not somewhere, not on a big scale.
Right.
So it's not, I think the fear is more not that like everything's going to come down, but we're going to just continue to remain ignorant to the atrocities because they don't affect us until they do. Like people mining for cobalt.
Sure.
You know, it's like, oh, well, it's good for them. It's still like slavery. Is it? I mean, is it the worst life? I don't know. You know, some people might say, you know, you're a slave if you work for corporate America. Like, who knows? It's so separate, but it can so easily just be ignored because it doesn't affect anybody.
Yeah. It's a funny thing that you say that, because one thing I can't get out of my head, and it is sort of on this subject, right? Our dependence on technology today, right? The whole world works on the internet.
Oh yeah.
Right. And today, without a cell phone, people, they don't know how to function.
Right.
So what's wrong with that? Well, you know, we've got coronal mass ejections, sunspots that happen all the time. There's a big part of the military spend is on EMPs. You know, bombs that'll set an electromagnetic pulse and just fry all electronics. And it happens in a very natural sense from the sun. It's happened in the past. It happened, I think, in the early 1900s.
It's the human defense mechanism against the machines in the Matrix.
But what would you do? I mean, what would you do?
Oh, if the internet got wiped out?
There's a big electromagnetic pulse, and all the satellites that are in orbit right now, and there's thousands and thousands of them doing different things, they all fry.
Yeah, what happens?
And that's not a ridiculous path. It could happen. It probably will happen at some point, right? So what do? When the internet goes down and you've become totally dependent on technology, all your options, your bag of tricks, all the things you can do to survive are all dependent on you going to your phone. You know, how do you get from point A to point B? Well, I'll just Google it. No, you won't.
Right.
No, you won't.
You don't
call
know
somebody. No, you won't. Nobody has landlines anymore.
Right.
You know, you're cold. I'll turn the lights on. No, you won't. You better build a fire or know how to build a fire, because that's the only energy you're getting. Yeah. But people we've become so domesticated.
Yeah.
And so dependent on technology that it really worries me that if anything were to happen, a lot of people would not know which end is up. They wouldn't know how to handle it.
Well, that's what we were kind of talking about it too on our drive, like why the relic is important. But it's also important not to just keep it as like a preserved thing that you kind of like idolize and know it's there, but you have to have multiple systems that do the same thing. Like you need to have cash systems. You need to have bartering systems. You need to have like raw material systems where you can use that as a monetary. And you need Bitcoin. You need all of them, because if you have multiple and one of them falls off, it's marginal. It's like
you've got redundancy.
You've got redundancy.
That makes sense.
And I think we're at a point where we can do that, or maybe we are doing it and we have no idea. But one thing, the internet thing that I think is really kind of cool, or not cool, but I like the idea, is like a romantic, like post-apocalyptic, like rogue sort of society. Like if there's a way to have like maybe servers in the ground or servers in space, outer space servers that somehow can be shielded from EMPs.
I'm sure that probably already exists,
right?
And it's just over my pay grade.
It's
I'm
the
sure
military
that there
has
are
it.
server banks, especially the ones that manage Bitcoin and all the really important stuff. I'm sure that to some degree they are shielded.
Yeah.
To some extent. But even still, even if the power grid went down, forget about just the power grid. And we've seen it happen. Remember the blackout they had on the East Coast in New York not too many years ago. We've seen what happens in society when you take something that people take for granted and you take it away.
Oh, yeah.
You've seen how they behave. Look at COVID. It's a really good study of human behavior and how people react when things go a little south, right? And if you really study what people did and how they behaved, how they interacted with one another, masks are another really good example. when people walk around the world and everybody's wearing a mask and nobody really knows who anybody is, I noticed it a lot. People's behavior changed dramatically. They did and said things that they would never in a normal world ever say or do when they were behind their mask.
It's like you get the anonymity of the internet. Like they don't know who you are.
Yeah.
Like you're kind of shielded. You're hidden.
Yeah. I mean, it was a very interesting study in human behavior. And I'm sure that there are people that are studying it a lot deeper. I just observed it as I was living it. And I thought people would not do this if they weren't walking around wearing masks. Or like supply chain gets a little bit disrupted during COVID. And what is the first thing that people worry about? Toilet paper. Remember, we talked about this and I'm like, in the drive, I'm like, toilet paper? Right? I mean, what does that say about us as a society when the wheels are falling off? We're in a global pandemic. People are dying.
It says we're not Muslim.
And the first aisle to get cleaned out is the toilet paper aisle. Strange, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it strange? You try to predict how people are going to react given a certain situation. It is the only thing that's predictable is that it's unpredictable.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going to all of a sudden become important to people. You can't predict it. Strangest thing ever.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? I mean, think about that. Toilet paper?
Oh, yeah.
You've got food, you've got water, you got ammunition. And yeah, that stuff got hoarded too. I mean, I get it.
The ammunition got hoarded quick.
Big time.
Guns.
Big time.
For sure. The first thing everyone was thinking was about killing everybody. That was like
protecting themselves.
One of the two.
Yeah.
But I mean, 'cause you can't really protect yourself without. Yeah. Well, I guess you can, but that's the ultimate. That's ultimately what happens.
I thought it's an interesting study, and I'm sure that there are people that are studying it a lot deeper than me. I'm just talking just from an observer.
Yeah.
Like, somebody that went through it like we all did. But I took a lot of time, and I just sat on the sidelines, and I just watched people. Paid attention. Like, my neighbors acted differently. People in the grocery store acted differently when everybody was walking around masked up, like the height of it, at the height of COVID.
Yeah.
Human interaction changed.
Right.
Dramatically.
Right. Like if someone didn't have a mask on, all of a sudden they were like ostracized or like looked at. Or like if people knew that you weren't vaccinated, they were very like, they had like such an opinion about. And then it's funny because then it relates to like ideas about abortion and like.
Oh, it's spun into all kinds of crazy conversations. But I mean, even two people who come upon each other in a grocery store and they're both wearing masks.
Yeah.
When you can't see facial, I think we don't give enough credit to nonverbal communication. And when you can't see facial expression that readily, somebody's wearing a mask, God forbid they're wearing glasses.
Yeah.
You can't see what's happening on their face. I think there's a lot of nonverbal communication that went on that was completely masked when people had masks. And I think that made human interaction different. I noticed things go on between people in grocery stores.
Yeah.
Only because they were both anonymous to each other.
Well, the other
wouldn't go on if they weren't wearing masks.
Right. If you're afraid because of the situation, you have reason to believe that like your life might be in danger or society's collapsing, so you're scared. And if you can't see, like you're saying, the facial expressions that allow you to discern a person that's happy or being aggressive, you might innately default to a defensive state.
That's what I think a lot of it was. That's like, I think, it boils down to the same thing with texting. Like when people try to communicate and they text, you not only lose the nonverbal communication, facial expression, body language, but you also lose the inflection in voice.
Yeah.
Right? It's just words. And people sometimes, I think, to their fault, they use like texting. It's like another level of miscommunication. An example, right? You can text somebody the words, "What did you mean by that?" And here's how, and you just type those words. What did you mean by that? And here's how two different people could read it. Person A says, "Well, what did you mean by that?" And person B says, "Well, what did you mean by that?"
Right, where you put the emphasis.
Right? It's the exact same words. So I just think that from a communication standpoint, I think it's gotten harder and harder. Technology has not made it easier. It's made it harder because we're losing verbal cues. We're losing facial cues. We're losing all the things that we really need to communicate.
Yeah, there's a level of pattern that is deeply innate past the surface that's being communicated. I think it's a high percentage in verbal communication. I think maybe it's like 70 or more is nonverbal, 70%.
Oh, I believe every bit of it.
There's this is going deep into the nonverbal or specifically the verbal. I don't know if it matters, but I think I mentioned this too. Like there's famous, I don't want to say his ethnicity, but his name I think is Morimoto. And I don't know Chinese. I think he's Japanese. And so he did tests where he would say certain words to like glasses of water, and then he would freeze them in an electron microscope, and then he would photograph how the words change the molecular structure of that water.
Really?
You ever heard this guy?
No.
So well, we could bring it up.
So what did he learn? I mean, through this whole experiment?
So what he learned was that words of like love and gratitude expressed in the water resulted in like beautiful patterns.
This next series of photographs are the work of Japanese researcher Mr. Masaru Emoto from his book, The Message from Water. Mr. Emoto's work provides factual evidence that human vibrational energy, thoughts, words, ideas, and music affect the molecular structure of water. Please remember that water comprises over 70% of a mature human body and covers the same amount on our planet.
So I don't know how much I'm allowed to show because it's not my footage.
The changes in water by means of his photographic techniques. He freezes droplets of water, then water, and the effects
so if
of
you
the
look,
environment.
These are positive affirmations.
Photographic techniques.
And then
different music, and then well song. This photo is of water.
This is like
Here
negative
now we can
affirmations.
compare the effects of
Look at that.
healing versus heavy metal music, and what happens to the water molecule. Here now we can compare the words onto paper and then taping this paper.
I don't want to skip around too much.
Glass.
But so it really get your head. So like if that's the case, if that's really the case on like a metaphysical thing, like there's this intrapersonal, but like if someone says something, it could literally, I could imagine it could change the way you feel depending how susceptible you are to that tone, right? And what I really wonder, which I gotta produce my own experiment. You gotta say nice things in a hurtful way and see what the result is. Like have a contradiction and see what is it solely based on tone, or does like the syntax, like does the actual enunciation of the word have its own like innate vibration, or like does the word love itself, like can you say love in a hateful way, or will it always kind of resonate in a positive way even if you say it terribly? And
it's interesting. I worked for somebody once, manager, and over the course of the years we worked together, they had to let a lot of people go, for various reasons. And this person had the most interesting way of letting someone go easy in a non-hurtful way, that I had people walk out of her office and I knew what was coming, expecting to see them walk out in tears because they just lost their job.
Right.
And they walk out smiling and happy. And I go, well, what happened in there? Well, I don't know. I mean, I think I just lost my job, but for some reason, like, I feel really good about it. Right. And this wasn't just one time. I mean, it's like she had a way of when the time came that you had to let someone go, whether it was her body language or the words she chose or a combination of all the above, she was able to have them leave feeling really good about what had just happened, even though what just happened was like really negative.
Yeah.
Right. And I never got to sit in on one of those sessions because I never lost my job. And I would love to have heard exactly how she did it. But it was extremely consistent, and it was many people over many years. So it's an interesting.
What company? Well, was it a big company?
It was a very large company. Yeah, it was a very large company.
Was it a successful company?
Yes.
She was probably really good at her job.
Oh yeah. Oh
Like
yeah.
I noticed people
They
that
hired her for a reason.
yeah.
Right? I mean, you don't. But I'm curious about the methodology. Like when you have to tell somebody they're losing their job, and potentially they're living paycheck to paycheck. Potentially they have a wife, kids, and a mortgage. How do you possibly, what can you possibly say or do to have them exit your office feeling good? But she did. It was intriguing to me.
Yeah.
And she did it on a consistent basis. So,
She's
very interesting stuff.
Well, in construction too, there's like none of that. It's like the total opposite, right? Like people mess up. Everyone's like, they want to yell at each other.
Oh, yeah.
But like there are people like that I know and that I work with that have like a really good like demeanor and like outlook, and they don't really blame people because you can't really change what happened. Now, if someone has to not come back because they did something terrible and that's costing money and they're not paying attention and things like that, that's okay. But like how they address it and then how they keep things moving forward, like for me, I've seen some people that are very similar, and you're like, it's such an eye-opening experience because it's like, all right, that guy definitely needed to go, and like it's good he did because he was bringing the whole morale down for the whole project, because that's all it takes is like one guy that's always pissed.
We've all seen it.
Bitching about what this, that, or the other, and then like letting him go and bringing in like even nobody to replace him and just like picking up the slack as a team a lot of times is the best solution.
Yeah.
But having people be fired and be happy about it.
It was the thing. Believe me, I learned from it without even seeing how it was done. I learned that it could be done.
There's this motivational speaker. His name is Stuart Wilde. I don't know if you ever heard of him.
No.
I used to I listen to a lot of people and I follow the rabbit hole, and he's like, he would get hired for conferences. He's an older, like he's probably not as known now. Like all the videos of him are in the past. Like I don't know if he's probably passed away by now, but he would go to like a business and he would give a motivational speech, and then like he had a situation where half the company quit.
Oh my God.
Because he was so like empowering. And then they didn't pay him. They were like, because he was supposed to get paid or whatever. And then he was like, I think it was something like that. And then maybe after that he got paid up front or whatever. But
that's interesting.
He was, there is like a good way to like build people up. Like
that sounds negative, but maybe he did that company a favor.
Maybe.
Because those people probably all had one foot out the door anyway for one reason or another.
Right. Yeah. That's a big loss. I mean, half your company.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like an Anthony Robbins or Tony Robbins.
Yeah, he's great.
Have you ever been to anything like that?
Yeah, I have. And I walked through the coals and I did the thing, and yeah, I mean there's something to it. I mean, motivational speaking, I used to think motivational speaking was smoke and mirrors. Years ago when I was younger, smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
I couldn't get Matt Foley out of my mind from Saturday Night Live. And that's just where I put all motivational speakers. But then I met people over the years that changed my way of thinking. Anthony Robbins was one. There was a keynote speaker at a seminar I went to for Century 21 for international convention.
Mm-hmm.
And usually it was a big name person, somebody you would know. It was like Mark Kelly, the astronaut, people like that.
Okay.
Ex-presidents, big names. And here this girl walks up. Nobody knew who she was. So she introduces herself. And the long story short is when she was young, she had a lung disease that was similar, a cousin to cystic fibrosis. Right? diminished lung capacity, couldn't walk up a flight of stairs at a very young age. And they said, you're probably going to follow a similar path of cystic fibrosis. You probably won't live past your 20s. This is definitely going to get progressively worse. And she continued to do the things she was supposed to do to help herself. And she got better and she got better and she worked at it. And when she got into her 20s, decided she was going to climb a mountain. Just one mountain. So she does it. And she succeeds with it. And her story goes on to say that there's a club, if you could use that word, of people, and their goal is to climb the 7 highest peaks on 7 continents. So you have to do, and of one of those, Everest is one.
Okay.
And then some sort of a solo hike on the North Pole and on the South Pole. And there's just an elite, very, very small group of people that accomplish this. Well, she accomplished it. And her motivational speech was her whole journey. It took hours and hours. It was her whole journey. But I left listening to her with a whole different view of like motivational speaking, like in general, like as a profession. Because it does change people. It changes the way you think. Listening to her, it changed the way I think thought about certain things. So to me, it was really just like super interesting. So I did go to Anthony Robbins. I've seen other motivational speakers, and I always leave with benefit, sometimes more than others. But that's a later in life thing. I should have been smart enough to listen when I was younger. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the motivational speaking is, I wonder if it all plays a role into that, because you have someone it's like a success story, right? It's like the impossible, and then it makes it tangible without having to go through it. It's like so often, like, I feel like we learn from just watching. It's like, there's like a test where like mice are incapable of completing some maze.
Mm-hmm.
And they have them like in all different parts of the world, and then they like one mouse figures it out, and then like almost instantaneously, like the whole genus like knows it.
Really?
It's like this. So it's like
interesting.
And it's like, well, what causes that? How does that? But having somebody like show you that it's possible, or that you know that something's possible, or that somebody does it like instantaneously can make it possible. Like in skating or something, like everything progresses, right? In like sports that are like competitive sports, I mean, I think hockey, you see the skill level and the moves that people have to do, and the agility and the dexterity to be able to, especially now, like complete very complex maneuvers. And like in skating, if I can't do something and like it doesn't seem possible, and I see somebody all of a sudden do it, and then it becomes possible.
Right.
And it becomes like part of my vocabulary.
Right.
It's like osmosis.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting stuff. But yeah, my view of the world has changed. It was not just a motivational speech, the need for being prepared. There's a lot of areas where you can think about where I think about how I viewed the world when I was in my 20s. And now the way I view it that I'm in my 60s. And there's a lot of change and just perspective.
What do you think?
Well, think about it. When you're in your 20s, you're bulletproof. I don't need to be prepared for anything. Nothing's going to happen. Then you live a little, and you get cancer like I did, and you get this, and you get that, and you go, well, shit, yeah, things can happen. Right? Like that. So there's a lot of things that I look at now that I'm in my 60s through completely different glasses than I did when I was in my 20s, which I suppose is natural. That's probably like everybody. But to me, it's glaringly obvious at this stage of my life. The difference is glaringly obvious. I have a whole different worldview right now than I had when I was younger, even in my 30s for that matter. So yeah, and a lot of it is the events that have happened in that 30-year window. A lot happened.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. In the past 30 years, a lot happened. From the late 1990s, like say 2000, Y2K.
Yep.
Another experiment in human behavior. That's another good example, Y2K.
Yeah.
The world's going to end when all the computers hit the year 2000, and how people reacted.
Everyone's
that should have been a clue. Should have been a clue. You know, people were boarding up their houses, they were quitting their jobs, they were spending their nest egg because the world was going to end anyway.
Yeah. And then it doesn't. And
And it
you're
didn't.
like, oh shit.
Right.
Now I got to keep going to work.
Right. There's
Is that-
another good study in human behavior. There's been a lot of them in the past 20 or 30 years when you really think about it. That's an example. COVID was an example. 9/11 was an example.
Do you think we've really changed a lot as humans, like looking back? Because it seems like there's always that thing. There's always like the next like fork in the road that like just splits everybody up. And it's like it's always like intentional, right? It's like a conspiracy. None of it's real. It's all like propaganda, and it's like some CIA thing. Or I feel like there's always some theory that like it's put there as like a distraction to keep you from like finding out that like BlackRock bought all the houses.
Yeah.
Or, you know,
Yeah,
it's like something like that.
Exactly.
But
I don't know. I mean, I think human behavior is innately pretty consistent. I think the circumstances change over time, over decades and centuries. Circumstances change, but the way we respond as humans, I think, is pretty consistent. Look, we're still going to war. This is the year 2025. Humans have fought over the same things, but different circumstances, but the same things over land, over natural resources since we've been on two legs. I think as a species, I think we're pretty consistent. I think the circumstances in which we function change, but I think the way that we react to those is pretty consistent. It's just in my worldview and my view anyway. We're still doing the same things we were doing.
I wonder with the technology if that's gonna. I feel like it blinds us to our nature a little bit because we have such ideas about how we should be and how we would be because we're exposed to all this stuff in an abstract way. But then, like in a practical way, when George Floyd passed away and there are people storming the streets, breaking shit, then it's like, oh, it's okay to have a gun now and walk outside.
Yeah.
But like until then, you're like, no, guns are bad, right? And like you don't want to.
Right.
And you're like very,
Right.
you know.
Well, I don't even know if it's a good or bad thing. I think people honestly didn't feel the need. They just thought it was overkill. We have the police department to protect us. We have a military to protect us from foreign invaders. They just didn't see the need, right? And now they see the need, so it changes their perspective, changes their view of the world. We were very insulated for a lot of decades. We really
Yeah.
were. I mean, it was pretty quiet, I think, between like the end of Vietnam and 9/11.
Yeah, it was cool.
During those decades, the 80s, the 90s, reasonably quiet.
Yeah, because there was no racism in the 90s. There was
Well,
Michael Jackson and there was Michael Jordan. But it wasn't like it wasn't used as like a means to get media involved. It was like very much the opposite. Now, it doesn't mean it wasn't there. It just wasn't really a part. I don't remember it being part of like the narrative. I remember all this inclusivity, like in Living Color, and like Jim Carrey, and like, you know,
it's
Martin
true.
Lawrence, and all these people, and like Michael Jordan and Michael Jackson. Like there were all these people that were celebrities that everyone looked up to. And like now, like recently now, everything's like about like race baiting. And like most of the kids that grew up in like the 80s and 90s, like they're like, what do you like? That's like,
Yeah,
this isn't
yeah.
real. Not that racism isn't real, but it's not like a part of our vernacular. It's not like a part of like what defines us as people like it used to, because everyone
Sure.
was so segregated.
Sure.
And that's
sure.
what kept them safe, was being segregated, because they were always killing each other. But
Yeah.
we don't really do that.
I don't know. It definitely. I think. Here's what I think. I think we're more polarized now than we've ever been. On every level, on every subject. I don't care if you talk politics, if you talk race relations. We are, for whatever the reason, maybe it's our government, maybe it's the media, maybe it's, I don't know why, but I see what you see. I mean, it seemed like for decades we were stepping down the right path, right? We're
Yeah.
moving the needle in the right direction.
I thought
For
Hillary
decades.
for sure would win because of that. It's like all optics, like let a woman be president. Who gives a shit?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what she thought. right? I mean, that's what a lot of people thought. But obviously, there's a lot of people out there they're the silent majority. They think differently, but they're not very verbal about it. That seems pretty apparent.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I look at the world now that I'm older through different glasses, and I see polarization and separate people with strongly separate views more than I ever saw it. Maybe it's always been there and I'm just seeing it now. Maybe it's more visible because of social media. People never had a conduit before to voice their opinion. So even though they always thought very differently, you never had a platform to share it. I think it's that more than it's anything. That's probably the dark side of social media and the internet and how it's changed us. Everybody's got a voice.
Yeah. I feel like the majority is also like the minority or the individual. Like they can tend to be a good reflection. And I wonder if that polarization is something that we have within us as individuals, but it's easier to see externally. But the only way it changes externally is if we first recognize it kind of within ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's probably true.
How do you do that?
It's not an easy task.
How do you see
It's
yourself?
not an easy task, but I think that's probably true. I mean, you look at technology and the way it's affected us as a species, right? The internet's one example. Everybody's got a voice now. Things go viral. These strange, seemingly meaningless things go viral, and millions of people get to weigh in a matter of moments.
Right.
It's an amazing thing. And you fold that into now, right? AI. Is it good or is it bad? It reminds me, we talked about this, right? It reminds me of Jurassic Park. And when in Jurassic Park, the guy says, everybody's so focused on whether we could do this, nobody stopped to think about whether we should, right? AI is a good example of that. It's going to bring huge benefit to humanity, right? But it's, to my way of thinking, it's dangerous. It's dangerous. In a lot of different ways, it's dangerous because it's like the internet. Nobody could have predicted 30 years ago some of the pitfalls we now experience with the internet,
Right.
the dark web, all the things that have spun up. Nobody could have ever foreseen that.
Well, the fraud is like crazy.
Oh, the fraud is crazy. The trafficking, just all the dark side of it. But nobody could have predicted that 30 years ago. Well, when you look at AI and try to cast it forward, when you have programs that are writing programs and learning that are writing programs, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but if I try to forecast 10, 20, 50 years in the future with that kind of technology, I get really squeamish. I get really, really nervous. Right?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm the only one. Maybe I'm alone.
I don't know. I don't think you're alone. I think a lot of people don't know. Well, anything that you can't understand is scary because it could be a threat. What makes things less scary is that you fully understand them. So it's a lot of reason people do research if something happens.
Right.
And it may be something we don't have the ability to ever understand. Like really what's really operating.
Well, to me, what's going to drive it, it's what drives everything, right? Follow the money.
The dollars, yeah.
Right. I mean, with this AI technology, it's going to bring benefit. It's going to bring benefit in medicine and communications. If it's handled correctly, for sure, it will. But beneath the waves, what's always going to matter is who's going to profit from it.
Yeah.
And when somebody finds a way to profit from it, whether it's in the best interests of mankind or not, is not going to matter. If they find a way to make a profit off of it, whether it's detrimental or not. I mean, think about it, right? Not long ago, 10 years, 20 years ago, marijuana was the devil.
Yeah.
Gambling was illegal. It was the devil, right? Now there's a dispensary in every corner. There's a casino in every single strip center. The world hasn't changed. What happened is somebody found a way to profit from it.
Yeah.
So it became socially acceptable. Maybe that's an example of what I mean, right? And so now take that and fold AI into it, right?
Well, two things. Having all those other vices at your disposal is going to require the average person, if they want to be if society is going to sustain, to have better self-control. And then AI, if it's like tracking and doing all this stuff, it's going to require people to take actual accountability for themselves and like maybe see themselves. I don't know how, but I think that's what happens, because if you have dispensaries and you have all this stuff, there's going to be a slump, right? For sure. It's going to destroy a lot of things, people that maybe wouldn't have been, right? Maybe there's a benefit to it, but there's a slump. Now the new normal is you have to have better self-control, because those things are going to be like obvious pitfalls that people are going to need to get a handle on early on or understand better. Otherwise, the societies are going to fall apart.
Yeah.
Like, it was easy when they're away. You're not tempted by it. No harm, no foul, no. So it's not. But now that it's here, self-control has to go up. And then,
but it won't. It
maybe,
won't.
yeah,
I mean,
maybe
as
it
a
won't.
species, we don't. I believe we don't have a lot of self-control. When you have a gambling problem, and there's a casino in every strip center,
yeah,
nobody has that much self-control.
no, or restaurant.
Alcohol. They tried prohibition.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
No. I mean, so you could leave it on self-control, but I think when you make that available to the masses, there are people that are going to suffer.
There's going to be,
and the reason is there's other people that are making profit who don't care. It's you follow the money, and so I know that's just the way we are as a species in a society. I get it, but then fold that into AI and the power that AI has to change the world and like what it does. I mean, as it is right now, honestly, I don't think, and I'm guilty of this, if I go to write a paragraph, if I'm doing a remarks on, I'm in real estate, so if I do a remarks on a listing of mine, AI writes it for me. Just writes it for me. I just give basic details of the property, and it writes this glowing, awesome couple of paragraphs about this property, right? I'm going to forget how to write. I'm going to forget how to write a proper paragraph, right? I mean, that's just a tiny little microscopic example of a possible negative impact that a crutch like that could be if the day ever comes where we become so dependent on it, like we are on the internet now, and then it goes away for any reason.
Geez. Yeah.
People aren't even going to know how to write a correct paragraph.
Right.
That's that's what it is. That's probably what it is that worries me.
Well, you got spell check. Like you said, you got all these things that we become more and more reliant on. And then if it disappears.
But it's spell check on steroids.
Oh, it's.
Spell check is one thing.
It's more than steroids. Yeah.
Right?
It's like.
So maybe that's okay. It's making for, I get it.
You get more time. You get through your work quicker.
What to do when you forecast that down the road and you've got a society of people that never really learned how to write a proper paragraph or do math with a paper and pencil? If there's even a glitch in the technology for any reason, whether it be solar, whether it be military, whatever, they're going to be lost.
Right. Yeah.
Right? I mean, we're already looking at it. People don't know how to build a fire and kill an animal and cook it and live and meet the threes, 3 minutes of air, 3 days of water, 3 weeks of food. They don't.
So we're gonna start training homing pigeons.
There you go.
When it all tanks, we're gonna have a fleet.
Oh man,
ready
this
to
has
go.
been so much fun. This has been.
All right. Well, you want to leave in homing pigeons?
I think we leave it homing pigeons. I think so. Leave it with a true fear of technology.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Uncle Bobby.
Thanks, John.
See you again. Thank you, everyone, for watching. See you soon.